In this session, we will be talking about 6 tips which will help you as an Amazon seller to stay profitable despite increasing costs and changing Amazon fees. So today we will cover all of different elements from manufacturing and logistics costs to the recent Amazon fee changes. And today with me, I will have 2 guests, Julia from Signify and Piers from Getida, who will share their insights about both of the topics. So let's welcome both of my guests here. Hi, Julia. Hi, Piers. How are you both doing?
I directly have a note. I know why Amazon changes the fees. Because they can. It's simple, right? And they want to make more money. Come on. But yeah.
That was already, you kind of answered one of my first questions, which I would have for both of you, which would be like, why do you think Amazon raises fees? But hopefully, despite the changes, you're both doing good and the year has been starting out great for you. And I know you're both very excited to be here today to share your insights with our viewers. But as always, let's first start with your introduction. So, Julia, could you first introduce yourself and tell us what you do in the Amazon space and how Signify also helps Amazon sellers?
Well, in Amazon space, I'm actually a seller since 2014. So it's been 10 years now. My husband started this off and then I kind of joined. And a few years back, out of a need for ourselves and for our previous customers, we started Signify Global Product Sourcing. So we help sellers not only in Amazon space, but outside of it as well to find manufacturers anywhere in the world, which is extremely important right now, especially if you sell in US, but all the other countries as well, right? And that's one of the things that I will be mentioning later. Yeah, I've been in the space in general in sourcing for 19 years now. Yeah, it's a long way and it's a short way, and there is a learning every single day. So there's something new popping up every day. That's kind of in a nutshell.
I think that's the life of Amazon sellers and Amazon experts. We're still in January, and I think during like last week or 2 last weeks, we have already seen so many new changes and updates. Probably we need to make like another webinar to cover everything. So, Piers, what about you? What's your background and what Getida does to help Amazon sellers?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Yeah, great to be here. Thank you for having us on. We love doing these webinars with you guys and also with Julia. It's great to be here and talk a bit more about the ways that we can maintain margin during what is a tough time for operators in the Amazon space at the moment. So a bit about myself. I currently work at Getida on the European team. Getida, I'm sure lots of people already know the brand, but we help Amazon sellers get money back from Amazon for inventory and fee-related discrepancies. So we very much operate in the world of cash flow optimization and profitability. I've been in the space now for 5 years. So before I was at Getida, I worked at Thrasio on the M&A team. When I was on the M&A team at Thrasio, we reviewed hundreds of brands and we bought quite a few of those brands. So that gave me some good insight into areas within FBA brands that we can optimize around cash flow and profitability. And yeah, looking forward to leaning into some of that experience on today's conversation.
Yeah, as we can see, both of you are very experienced and you have been in the space for many years. And I think it really helps to kind of navigate through the changes better as well, which we are facing, which Amazon sellers are facing currently. And that's why you're here today with us as well, because you definitely have some good insights and ideas to share from your experience as well. So any of us, if anyone is watching us live today and you really like what Piers and Julia are sharing and you're learning something new, definitely like the video and also subscribe to our Orange Geek YouTube channel if you're not a subscriber yet. And one more thing, both of you, I think, are more than happy to answer any questions our viewers have today. So leave them in the chat box on the side of the video, and we will gonna come back to the questions very shortly as well. But as always, at Orange Click, we love to just get the knowledge out of the experts. So let's get straight on it. And Julia, maybe you could be the first one. So how we will do it today is that both of you prepared some slides for us to go through a few main topics or details. And then we're going to get some good tips from each of you as well, and then going to continue with the questions. So Julia, can you share your screen and let's start with your presentation?
Yeah. I don't have too much time, so I'm going to try to be as succinct as possible. So one of the things so I want to share on a few things that you need to look out for in 2024. Honestly, those are logic, but there is a few more in general, but these would be the kind of top things that we're looking out for our brand and we're looking for our customers. So
Julia,
transportation.
One
Yep.
thing before you start, could you hide
Yep.
the notification message down below so we could see your slides a bit better?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So we know what is happening in the world. We have different political situations, which brings instability, and due to which the supply chain just goes berserk. Some of the things are affected negatively. Some of them might be affected even positively, but we don't even know. So one of the things, for example, are the transportation costs to take into account in 2024. So most of the people think, oh my God, the world, war here, war there, and all of those things. But fluctuations in oil prices, they can obviously significantly impact your transportation costs. However, actually, if you look at 2023, the costs went down of the fuel prices, right? Especially when we're talking about transportation sea freight. And the prediction is that for 2024, the fuel prices will still decrease. So this is something to take into account, right? And again, take all of those things and make sure to talk to your suppliers and to talk to your forwarders and discuss those things. So, but logistics and shipping rates in general, we see that the demand, it's not going to be ever at the same, or not ever, but it's not going to be at the same levels as it was during the Corona, but it is increasing a little bit. And also due to problems with Panama Canal, problems with Suez Canal, the logistical and shipping rates are predicted to actually still rise in 2023. So that's something for you to still consider, even though there is decrease in the fuel prices, but overall the rates are going up. So maybe it will kind of even out and there won't be any changes in your shipping rates. One of the things to take a look at very closely are your inventory costs. So holding costs, right? Expenses related to storing inventory, In our case, when we're selling with Amazon, we can use FBA, they're storing, but if you store too much and not sell, they're going to start charging you different types of fees. I'm sure Piers will tell you all about their increase and decrease. So one of the things that I actually suggest for 2024 to consider is, and I did not misspell it, it's not drop shipping, but it is drip shipping, right? There are a few companies out there on the market who can drip ship your inventory. So let's say you manufactured something in China, and rather than sending all of your stock to Amazon FBA in US, right? You can send it to a special company in China who will drip ship your inventory as you require it. Why don't you just store it in a warehouse in US? Because the costs are a lot more expensive. So this is definitely something to consider. Also, the cost of the products becoming outdated, no longer innovative, people not buying them. So definitely one of the things you need to review are, in general, your sales numbers and to see what are the trends that are currently trending on the market. Because if your product is basically obsolete, you need to be really honest with yourself. And I think I've seen over the last 10 years how many Amazon sellers, they have a problem of admitting that the product is done because they're so emotionally involved with those products because they're like babies for them. You know, they've been developing, growing them from scratch, and now the baby is retired, right? Or should be retired. So one of the things is to honestly look at all of your numbers, and if there is something that needs to be closed down by now, then it needs to be closed down. So a few other things, not too many. Production costs, right? So you got your raw materials. So price of the raw materials, depending on the materials, like changes like crazy. But in general, again, if you look at the price of the top raw materials, let's say wood, let's say different types of metal, textiles in general. So in 2023, there was a decrease, and the projections are that the raw materials will decrease still. The reason for this is that there is still not enough demand, right? And obviously demand kind of dictates the supply and the prices on the market. So projection decrease. Again, this is something to discuss with your manufacturer. Labor costs. When you look at most of the countries, considering the inflation levels, I mean, I live in Germany, we got our strikes every week, going to the airport, you got our farmers, you have train. So labor costs in general worldwide are predicted to rise, depending on the country, depending on all of Europe. Inflation situation, obviously the percentage will be different. Something to take into account, because when you have a country like Germany and you manufacture your product there versus the country like Indonesia, the cost increase in Germany will be more substantially felt by you when you're manufacturing your product in comparison to Indonesia. Supply chain disruptions in general, natural disasters. Well, that's a big question. We're not really, obviously, it's kind of a miscellaneous thing, right? We can't really predict this. But due to natural disasters and all of those supply chain disruptions in general, my advice would be to make sure that you have some sort of insurance that will cover you in case of such potential natural disasters or disruptions. Please also take a look at the region where you're producing your product. For example, there are a few provinces in China that are being struck by quakes all year round. The same goes for Indonesia. Other countries get hit more by hurricane, or regions by hurricanes, etc., etc. Political and trade events. So this is an interesting one, especially for those of you who sell in US. We know that the presidential elections are coming up in 2024, and everybody says that it's going to be Biden versus Trump. I don't like to get involved in politics. I'm Russian. For me, it's a whole different story. But, if Trump wins, everybody's predicting that the trade war with China will actually intensify, meaning most likely there will be more tariffs that will come into place. When we're talking about Europe, as unstable we are here in Europe, it is somewhat stable in comparison to other countries. They know that there are a lot of things that are still coming from abroad, like China and other countries, that we still in Europe can't substitute. Plus, you have a lot of countries nearby that can produce many things. So for Europe, it's a little bit easier. Regulatory compliance, that's the last one that I want to mention. For many things across Europe and US, regulatory compliance, they're increasing, right? December 2023, new standards came in for cosmetics, for example, for US, which is great for the consumer. It's great for those sellers who kind of stick by this, and the bad ones fall off. So your barriers to entry are higher, which means it's survival of the fittest, right? It's Darwinism on the scale of Amazon. So this is something you definitely need to look out for, because most of the countries, they're trying to increase compliance, especially when it comes to environmentally friendly products, to improved and clear and transparent supply chain, which is going to be close to impossible to do, but we'll try. So those were kind of the main points for 2024 to look out for. And here are a few things that I suggest the actions that you can take in order to make sure your margins are there, staying at the same level that you're at, or even increasing. So these are some of the things we're actually using for our customers. First things first is definitely supply chain diversification, by which I mean to produce your product in 2 different regions. So if you're already producing your product in China, try to do nearshoring, which is the second one. Try to diversify your supply chain at the same time. So try to find a country preferably in a different region. So if you produce in Asia, produce your second product in, for example, Europe. So as close possible to the point of sale, right? So this would be kind of nearshoring, and supply chain diversification, different region. Because if one region in Asia is under political disturbance or something else, then you still have a factory in another region, which will reassure that you still have sufficient supply. So those two things go a long way, and we work with literally thousands of sellers, and most of them, they're going this way because they want to be more certain. They don't want the same situation to happen like what happened with them during the coronavirus. Working on the BOM, so on the bill of materials, together with your existing manufacturer. Very important, especially if you have a good standing relationship with your manufacturer. Just say, hey, can we please look at the BOM? Of course, I'm trying to keep the prices down, but I don't want you to make less money. So talk openly and honestly with your manufacturer. So I want to look together with you at the bill of materials. So how much every material costs, what is the labor cost and all of those things. So we can understand what and where can we adjust, where we can use a cheaper material or maybe a more innovative production solution. So this is something we've been doing already in 2023 with a lot of our manufacturers. And on average, it helped us lower down the cost by about 10%, which means your margins go up by 10%. A few more things which are logic, but people simply don't do this. And this will bite you in your tushy. Plan ahead for a full year. So sit down right now. If you were already sold last year, right? Sit down right now, try to make projections for a full year ahead. Look at the national holidays of the country where you're manufacturing and make sure that you plan to place the orders at appropriate times with your manufacturers. And even better, directly right now, you can say, guys, I'm going to be placing orders in March, in August, and in October. Because if the manufacturer knows, if they put you in their production plan, then you will be safe. Another thing to consider potentially to save some money for yourself and increase your margins are definitely annual contracts with manufacturers. So this is basically when you sign a contract with the manufacturer and say, for example, I have this USB cable and I'm going to be buying 1,000 pieces of them in the whole of 2024. I'm signing the contract, but you will take them out partially. So first order, you will take out 200, second order 300 throughout the year, etc., etc. But you commit to buying the full quantity. Renegotiations with the manufacturer, these are the basic things that must be done, but most of the people don't do. They have a good relationship with their current manufacturers, and they're afraid that if they're going to say a word that, oh my God, I'm going to lose them, it's the end of the world. No, they're humans. They don't want to lose you as a customer as well. It's a two-way street. So talk to your manufacturers and also try to talk to some others to see what else is out there on the market. Because more often than not, we see that people found someone when they in total talked to maybe 5 manufacturers, and those had, maybe the best price. But actually, when you look at the industry, it was like, you can still have it 10 or 20% lower. So those are kind of the main things from my side that will help you in 2024 and make you rich, and you will go to Maldives and buy the latest cars or whatever is your fancy. Yeah, that's it from my side.
Very cool. Thank you so much. I just love your enthusiasm talking everything related to sourcing and manufacturing. You're definitely an expert in this field. So thank you so much. So before we bring Piers back in, I wanted to say if you really enjoyed what Julia just explained or you learned something new, I definitely did. The drip shipping phrase is definitely something new. And we also have a few questions about it. Don't forget to... Yeah, don't forget to like the video to show support to us and Julia as well. And if you're not yet a subscriber of our YouTube channel, then also subscribe to Orange Click YouTube channel to see more webinars and videos like this. So let's go ahead and see what questions you have based on your presentation and also the tips you share to help sellers to stay more profitable. So Abigail is asking, can you recommend any trip shipping companies? And then actually another question is quite similar. How do you find a trip shipper in China?
I give you a suggestion. One of the companies that I know very well, I know those guys personally. They're called SKU Drop. SKU Drop. Two guys from Australia. They've been in the Amazon business for quite some time. I had good experiences with them. Our customers had good experiences with them. So yeah, SKU Drop.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Thank you so much for that. And then
And
probably,
if you want to find some other companies on your own, I mean, Google is your friend for sure, right? But you can also look. I prefer to find the companies that are based, for example, if we're talking China and drip shipping it to US and other countries, right? I prefer those companies that are based in China, but maybe have European or not European, Western management style, because and who understand Amazon. For example, with SKUDrop, I know those guys understand Amazon. They work with tons of sellers. For others, you can also try to find them, for example, on Alibaba or on Google or on Baidu, or you can also drop some questions in some Facebook forums, right? I know these guys, that's why I'm recommending them. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And Jeda is actually having another question. I'm using China for flashcard manufacturing. How do I find manufacturers in Mexico? It's closer to the States, so it would be cheaper.
Yeah, so there are a few ways. I actually done quite a few webinars on this as well. The process is not as easy as in China, right? So there is no one thing, there is no one platform like Alibaba that is in Mexico. So the easiest things that you can do is simply, and I know it sounds dumb, but it is that way. So you need to start Googling actually in Spanish for the manufacturers, but don't Google for the manufacturers of the flashcards. Google for the manufacturers of the actual materials, right? So the problem in sourcing products in other countries is you can't, on a lot of occasions, unfortunately, you can't search by product. You need to search by base material. You can also search for some trade shows in Mexico and during related again to the industry, to the material, and go through the list of exhibitors. You can even go on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn and put those keywords in those social media platforms, because when service providers and manufacturers, they go to trade shows, they always post online. So there is exposure and people can see them. Yeah, so mostly you need to make sure you speak the local language to try, again, Google Translate or DeepL, D-E-E-P-L. DeepL is a little bit better than Google Translate. Search on local platforms, sorry, not on local platforms, search on Google in local language, search on social media. Those would be your first steps. In addition, you can even go on Alibaba, and on Alibaba you have selection by the country. Mexico sometimes appears there, but make sure to search by not the product, but by the material. It will be extremely helpful to you.
Okay, good. He added, I live in Nicaragua, español es no problema. So that sounds perfect.
I'm trying to remember a Spanish word, but I can't. Sorry, I have German and Chinese popping into my head right now. So, hablo español? No.
No problem. Okay, and one more question for you before we will invite Piers back in as well. So, in general, how is sourcing from India or Vietnam different from China? Is dealing with the manufacturers different, or what to look out for? I know this is probably like a separate webinar topic, but what would be like
about
the main
2 hours,
key points?
Yeah.
But what would you say, like some most important things people should know?
It will be a lot slower. So if you have done sourcing from China, you need to understand that sometimes you can get a response within 5 minutes, and even when it's the middle of the night in China. When it comes to Vietnam, India, or what we in our company call the ROW, rest of the world, it is absolutely different. The response rate is very different. Communication of the manufacturers. People in China are very, very hungry. They want to make the money. They want to get that business. People in the other countries, they still don't have that not all of them, don't have that passion for that business, for making money. I would say in terms of how hard or easy to deal, China, then Vietnam, then India. India, very different culture. You need to understand the local culture, right? And how to communicate. Easy example. When you're talking to a manufacturer in China, you're using WeChat. You can't use WeChat in India because nobody uses it, right? You're gonna have to use WhatsApp because that's what they prefer. In India, if they don't know something, they're not going to tell you no. Well, that's actually similar to China. So as in any country, when you want to receive a response, you need to ask for not yes or no question. You need to make sure the manufacturer answers the question with the full sentence. For example, Lisette, is my sweater white?
Yes.
That is an unacceptable question. The question, oh, sorry, that is the unacceptable answer.
Mm-hmm.
The answer should be, yes, Yulia, your sweater is white, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the things. In India, you have the India Mart, right? This is kind of Alibaba kind of thing. You got to be really careful, and there's lots and lots of scammers. So you got to do a background check, really hardcore, seeing their certification, company registrations, etc., etc. Again, as Lisette said, this is like a 2-hour webinar, but I hope it at least helped a little bit.
Definitely. And also, if you're new to our channel, then Yulia has been a guest on our channel beforehand. So if you head over to our YouTube channel later, then you will find more videos with her where she shares her knowledge about sourcing and manufacturing products in different countries. So Piers, hopefully you also enjoyed Yulia's presentation. And I must say, Amazon sellers are definitely passionate to make money and also passionate to source cool products from different countries. So one thing Getida does actually is to help sellers with reimbursement. So we're kind of transitioning from Yulia's presentation to Piers, your presentation about FBA fees. But I wanted to ask you one question, maybe that is kind of related to what Yulia also talked about. So obviously sellers are ordering products from different manufacturers and from different countries. So whenever they're making the shipments, the shipment does not always arrive fully as it should to Amazon, and Amazon sellers actually can initiate the process where then they can get reimbursed for the lost items or whatever issues there were with receiving the shipment. So I wanted to ask you to highlight what are kind of the main documents to ask for from a manufacturer or logistics company to make sure everything is all set when this time comes when sellers need to open a case with Amazon or prove that the shipment they sent in was actually within the parameters they claim to be.
Yeah, I can help on this. You've teed me up nicely, so thank you. And thank you, Yulia, for a great presentation as well. I learned a lot on there. So yeah, appreciate that. Documents-wise, yeah, really important that if you are sending stock, which most people on this webinar probably are, into FBA, that you keep a record of all of your commercial invoices or receipts from suppliers or manufacturers, and also any proof of delivery, which is typically a bill of lading or any other type of shipment documentation that is given to you by your courier or your freight forwarder. The reason why that's important is because if you are sending units into Amazon FBA, once Amazon has completed the transit, once it's received the items, and once it's completed the importation of your units into its FBA fulfillment center, then sometimes there is a chance that there may have been a discrepancy between the number of units that you've sent into the fulfillment center and the number of units that Amazon say they've received. This is quite a common reimbursement type that we look at, and also lots of sellers already have knowledge of this. But what a lot of sellers don't often do is work with Amazon to make sure that those units that were lost are rightly reimbursed back to them. And the reason they don't normally do that is because sometimes they don't have the right documents. So always keep a record for every shipment of a proof of purchase and a proof of delivery. That way, if you do have a discrepancy and Amazon asks you for evidence, you can easily supply that evidence. And more often than not, Amazon will reimburse you for the amount that you ended up losing.
Okay, good. Julia, and one more question before I let you start enjoying Pierre's presentation. I wanted to ask, is it common for Amazon sellers to get the logistics offer from their manufacturer and not like from a separate company?
Yes, it's very common, but you need to understand that the manufacturer is not the one that is usually shipping your product, right? The manufacturer, the same way as you, reached out to a logistic provider, a forwarder, they put their margin on top and kind of went with this. One thing to warn you, people say ship DDP, duty paid. Do not ship DDP. Because it's not illegal, but it's kind of illegal. You don't know what if so the manufacturers or the forwarders, they ship the goods and they put whatever HS code they want in there. So if you get stopped and checked by the customs and the HS code is not in accordance to what you have in the container, you are the one responsible, not the shipper, not the forwarder, because it's coming to you, it's under your name. So don't ship DDP, ship DDU, duty unpaid, right? Because at the end of the day, you need to be secure. And working directly with manufacturers, usually, you know, they can also get good pricing. So if you're trying to do an initial estimate, it's good to quickly get in, you know, to tell your manufacturer, oh, can you also quote me on shipping? And then you will have kind of your numbers and your landed costs. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks for the additional insight. So thank you once again, Julia. We will now let Piers to take the stage and we will invite you back a little bit later. So Piers, now it's time to go to one very interesting topic, which is the most recently announced Amazon FBA fee changes. And you nicely put together a slide deck for us as well to go through the main details. So go ahead and let's hear what are the
Yeah, Julia did a pretty perfect job of summarizing the fact that there's lots of events happening around the world that are having a knock-on effect on costs that businesses have to endure, whether that be production, shipping, fuel, etc. You know, we've also got a cost of living crisis chucked in there in a lot of countries, which is causing a pinch on consumer wallets. So it's a difficult landscape for brands to navigate at this current moment. And on top of everything going on in the sense of rising costs that are related to COGS and other areas of fees, Amazon has also chosen to jump on the bandwagon and increase fees again as we head further into 2024. So, you know, we've already seen this in recent time. These fee increases across the board are really chipping away into sellers' profit margins. And the consensus in the market that I've heard after this recent fee announcement is that this is one of the more complex updates that's happened in recent years, and it's quite hard to digest. So my aim on this next 10, 15 minutes is just to focus on the areas that I think are going to have the most impact on Amazon sellers' bottom line, and then also talk about some of the ways that you know, we can just make people aware of what the increases look like. And if people are aware of the increases, then you can plan how to counteract those increases and either maintain or even increase your profitability. So yeah, that's the aim of this presentation. In terms of the main fee increases that I've picked out, I'm focusing on these three in particular, which is placement fees, which may be a new term for some people, FBA fees, which I think everyone will know about, and then inventory shortage fees. So first things first, Amazon has actually eliminated the oversized category. So oversized has been around for years. You'll now see that being renamed as large, bulky, and extra large. So that's the first thing to look out for. One of the bigger changes out of these three is definitely the introduction of a placement fee, which is essentially a fee that Amazon are going to take now for receiving an item. So it's very similar to what 3PLs will charge. If sellers are used to working with a third-party logistics company, you're probably used to paying that kind of fee. But in the past, Amazon hasn't had that within their fee structure. And that is actually looking like it could be a fairly hefty cost, depending on the size of the product or unit that you're shipping in. So for standard size, you've got anywhere between 21 cents and 68 cents. And then for oversized items, you know, you're looking at a lot more, somewhere between $2.16 and $6. So that's quite a shocking revelation, and definitely one that we'll talk about later around ways that you can counteract that with things like your sizing tiers, and potentially redesigning packaging to fit the lower size tier if at all possible. So that's coming into effect on the 1st of March, so very, very soon. So definitely one to look out for. The next one is FBA fees. There's a slight glimmer of hope in the fact that some FBA fees are going to be decreasing. However, I had a look through the whole update, and it looks like the other fees, like the placement fees and the inventory shortage fees, are going to counteract the decrease in FBA fees. But we'll get into that in the next slide. And then lastly, inventory shortage fees. This is becoming like a bit of a tightrope for Amazon sellers to navigate, because Amazon is now penalizing sellers for not having enough stock for enough time, but then also penalizing sellers for having too much stock for too long. So it's pretty hard again to navigate that and make sure that you avoid penalized charges. So forecasting is really important there, and we'll get into that in a bit. In terms of the placement fees in first things to note is that these are only going to apply when you're shipping to one location, which for a lot of sellers has been quite common practice in the past for standard size items. Now, if you're selling oversized items, then those will tend to get distributed to multiple fulfillment centers. So in theory, most of these should not be subject to more fees if you're in that oversized category. My take on this was that it looks like the changing fees around standard size items are a move from Amazon to try and align the way that the distribution of standard size units is made in line with what already exists for oversized and bulky items. So it may just be a standardization of processes, but it's definitely going to have a knock-on effect if you're in that size tier. And with Amazon Global Logistics, a lot more sellers have been using Amazon Global Logistics for cost effectiveness and cost saving benefits. Your items will always go to one fulfillment center. So it seems as though Amazon is suggesting that there's going to be some new pricing structures that are going to be unveiled, because, of course, it's also saying that the placement fee is now going to apply when you're shipping to one location. So either a fee will probably change for AGL, or the way that AGL ships to fulfillment centers may also change. So again, just one to look out for there. In terms of FBA fees, as I mentioned on the first slide, it does seem as though there's going to be some minor reductions. So when we talk about minor, we're looking at a 19-cent decrease for standard size items. However, there are the new fees which are going to penalize sellers for maintaining that insufficient level of stock. So this goes back to forecasting. Guys that are selling on Amazon need to be using the data that is in Amazon and available to them to forecast how much stock they need for specific periods. Because if you're holding less than 4 weeks of inventory, then there's a substantial fee increase of at least, well, it's almost $1 a unit, 89 cents per unit, if you don't have enough stock to cover that 4-week period. So Julia already mentioned planning ahead. Planning is key this year with all of these fee increases, plus everything else going on in the world that's also having a compound effect on margin in general being eroded. So work with someone that really gets Amazon data. If you don't have someone internal, then there's some great people externally that will be able to help you there. And yeah, look, it's a fine line at the moment between managing inventory, short term and long term. And yeah, like I said, it's become a bit of a tightrope for sellers. I appreciate that probably sounds like bad news. It isn't all bad news. What we've been doing here over the last few weeks is putting together a bit more of a comprehensive table, which I'm not going to talk through completely today, just because I'm short of time. But we're very happy to share this with anyone that's looking for a bit more of a complete overview of all of the different areas that the fees are going to be subject to changing. And as is the case with lots of things on Amazon, the impact on individual sellers' situations and how fees are changing is very much going to depend on a whole host of variables. So You're going to have to look at your product type. You're going to have to look at your category. You're going to have to look at size of product. You're going to look at how your supply chain is set up. So there's a lot to unpick. Amazon's a game of margins in these days, and in my opinion, the best FBA sellers are the guys and girls that are Amazon specialists, and that really starts by knowing your fees and understanding where you can shave some percentages off. So that sounds like common practice, but many sellers will probably choose to ignore this, given the complexity, and that will ultimately have a negative impact on margin being eroded. So it's definitely worth spending the time, although this is quite laborious and it's quite research based. It can really have a great impact on your margin if you spend the time doing it. I just want to share what I think is a very useful resource, and I think everyone else that looks at this will also find this very useful. I've been geeking out on it a bit today. This is a size and fulfillment fee calculator for 2024. It was shared by a very good friend of Gettida's called Antonio Bindi. So some of you may know Antonio. He's an 8-figure seller. It's 3 brands, I think over 350 SKUs across those 3 brands. And he's an all-round good guy who simply put this together to help other sellers and give back to the community. So grab it while you can, and definitely leverage this information, and drop Antonio a message on LinkedIn just to say thank you, because we find it very useful, and I'm sure anyone else that wants to get a bit deeper into understanding what their fees are going to look like this year will also find that very useful. Yeah, so just some areas that, Lisa, you've asked us to think about 3 areas. There's lots of different areas that you can look at to drive profitability. I picked out 3 that I think are quite prevalent at the moment, and also these 3, I think there's a big opportunity around the fee increases that we're seeing to really use these to make an impact on the bottom line of the business, which ultimately everyone's looking to do at the moment, is to increase profitability and try and get some extra cash flow back into the business to use in order to grow. So first one I've outlined is cost of goods sold and also packaging. So one, optimizing packaging, Julia touched on briefly. Knowing your size tiers is one of the first things that people should think about when it comes to making more money on Amazon. You really want to understand the size tiers. And if you can redesign with your factory to come down a size tier, then there's potential to save $5 plus a unit, depending on the size tier that you're in and what you could get to. So a lot of people obsess about COGS, but if you can save, $2, $3, $5 a unit on a size tier, then that's probably one of the biggest drivers of profit that you'll be able to find on that ASIN. Polybags, also a seller's worst nightmare. I'm not sure how many sellers use these anymore, but a lot of sellers don't know this. When your products enter an Amazon fulfillment center, they go on what's called Amazon's Cubascan. So Amazon has a series of lasers on this Cubascan that will measure, and they also have a scale that will weigh the product. If the polybag holds the product and the polybag is much bigger than the product itself, then your dimensions are going to be impacted, and those dimensions are going to also have a knock-on effect on your size tier, your fulfillment charges, your removal and disposal fees, placement service fees, and lots more fees as well. So if you are using polybags, lots of sellers that used to use them are now looking at cardboard boxes as an alternative. It will mean that there is a universal and stable box that will go into Amazon, and there's a lot less chance of discrepancies around weights and dimensions. So that's the first one around COGS and packaging. Second one, which Julia mentioned and probably is better to talk about, is that China's economy is flat at the moment. Suppliers and manufacturers are desperate for business. So if you've not renegotiated rates and terms in a while, then it's a very different game now to what it was 18 months ago. So yeah, definitely one to think about, and I'm sure Yulia has some great tips and tricks for people to go about using when they are running that exercise in China. The second one I've got here is existing catalog analysis, which yeah, sometimes is a bit of a hard process that FBA sellers have to run. But you know, one thing I saw a lot at Thrasio when we looked at brands P&Ls at the end of the year, we would see that 30% of the SKUs were driving 90% of the profit of that business. It's that kind of 80-20 type rule where actually a lot of the ASINs and SKUs in the business are profit destroying SKUs. So at the end of the year, you'd have this P&L that looked average where, you know, if they had taken some time to make some difficult decisions and figured out whether to upgrade, innovate those ASINs or simply cut them, that P&L could have looked amazing. I think it's a tough decision, especially for brand owners, private label businesses that don't want to let stuff that used to perform well go, or you know, they spent a long time developing the product and there's a slight emotional attachment to it. But you know, when your P&L is being hit by all angles like it is at the moment, it's quite an effective way to increase some margin. So you know, that's again, it's sort of common practice, but common knowledge, but not always common practice. Sorry. And the last one I got here is cash flow cycles. So the thing I like to talk about here is kind of related to the issues that we're looking at in the world of supply chain again at the moment with what's happening in the Suez Canal. So we've got lots of ships that at the moment are being rerouted around Cape Horn, which means much longer journeys. I read the other day that the additional cost of sending a ship around Cape Horn rather than up through the canal is about $1 million in fuel alone, plus a lot of other costs as well. So we're seeing increases in freight rates again, and that's probably likely to be sustained over a longer period than some people are expecting. So I've put air versus ocean here. One thing to think about, you know, with ocean rates going up again, air rates may become a bit more competitive with ocean freight prices. And what you get with shipping via air freight is that there's a lot more times over the course of the year that you're able to churn your cash back into the business. So if you're able to use air freight to get your products into the market much quicker, you know, if you can get products into the market that you can sell through very quickly and keep doing that, of course, the number of times that you're going to be able to take that cash, churn it back into the business and have that compound effect of multiple cash cycles over the course of the year, ultimately is going to allow you to grow much quicker without really changing the operational cost side of the business too much. So yeah, again, just something to think about as an alternative to ocean freight, which is looking quite challenging again at the moment.
Okay, very good. I think that was the last slide for you, Piers, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for going through these fee changes and some tips as well to help sellers to stay more profitable. I'm actually going to bring Julia in straight away, but before I ask her a question, I wanted to say if you enjoyed what Piers just presented about and try to educate you about, then definitely like this video as well to show support for our guests, but also for Orange Click YouTube channel. So Julia, we actually recently, just this weekend, met at one Amazon sellers event, and you were definitely talking with a lot of different Amazon sellers. So I wanted to ask, like, were there many discussions over these new fee changes? Were sellers even aware that there will be changes coming up?
Well, you need to remember that Germany is a little bit different. We're behind the times here. Mm-hmm. Honestly, some people knew, some people were not aware. I'd say most of the people are not aware, simply for the reason we have information overload on daily basis, personal work, right? So you just don't even have the time to kind of understand what the hell is happening. So my suggestion to the people is kind of find maybe only 1 or 2 resources and watch, like, for example, like Orange Click, and watch weekly videos, because I know you guys and you give up-to-date information on what is happening in the industry. You can't follow 5, 10, 20 people. That's a full-time job. Stick to one or two, right? Mix it up a little bit depending on the market you're working with But I mean, it's scary what's happening. It's good and bad for the market. Those who really want to make it, they will make it and come up with new ways and better products with higher margins. Those who were in it, like the people from 10 years ago, buy for $5, sell for 20. Well, they're going to fail anyhow, right? Because that's not how it works anymore. But yes, not as many people should have mentioned it as they should have. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. So yeah, as you mentioned, it's good to stick to some kind of trustworthy resources, and that's why we are keeping running our YouTube channel with Orange Click team to publish videos with different experts to help sellers to stay up to date. But we also organize conferences in Europe, and I'm actually very happy that both of your teams, Signify and Ketida, are joining us for the next European Seller Conference, which is one of the go-to events for experienced Amazon sellers in Europe. And actually, I wanted to give a short overview of what people can expect from the event as well. So basically, what will happen in March 13 to 16 in Prague, Czech Republic, is a conference for experienced Amazon sellers. As you can see, it's already taking place in about 40 days. So as I mentioned earlier, it's for experienced sellers who are already achieved their first success, but are now eager to scale their business even further. And what would be the best way to stay up to date and get the latest insights than being together with sellers for a couple of days and learning something in maybe just a few minutes that otherwise could take hours to figure out, or even days or months. So how the event is built up is actually we have different days. So we start out with the VIP day, which is proudly sponsored by Ketida as well. So it's a more intimate way of spending one-to-one time with experienced Amazon sellers. And this day is followed by 2 conference days, which is kind of the main event for the conference. So there will be more than 15 expert presentations, which all will provide actionable tips for you sellers to help you to succeed and grow your business further. And then the event ends with an advanced workshop, which this year is held by Chris Rawlings, and it is aimed to help you transform your Amazon brand. As you can see, we have many speakers confirmed already. The speaker lineup has been finished now. So head over to the website of European Seller Conference to learn more about the speakers, the sponsors, the agenda, and hopefully we will see many of you in Prague in March this year. And also, if you come, then you're able to meet Piers and Julia also in person. So I think you are both excited to be there as well. And to kind of wrap up, maybe Piers and Julia, can you share one good piece of advice what you would give to sellers right now to help them to have a successful business year ahead, because we're still in the beginning of the year, to kind of encourage them to keep pushing and keep trying to find the success they have been always dreaming of. So Piers, maybe you want to go first.
I think resilience and grit are key first and foremost, just as like a behavioral thing. And then, don't slow down. I think Julia mentioned there's good and bad news in the market at the moment. I think the amount of bad news is definitely putting some people off. And because of that, other players, competitors are slowing down. So this is a great chance that, if you're 100% committed, then, just keep going, because the last couple of years have been really challenging since COVID and tailwinds switching to headwinds. It's been a tough landscape, but we're starting to see a bit more optimism in the market, and I expect that's going to continue throughout this year. So, international expansion, I think, is big for a lot of brands at the moment, especially brands that always used to rely on product launches and now looking at alternative ways of growing sales. And if you're doing great sales in your native marketplace, your domestic marketplace, and you've not yet exploited opportunities in international marketplaces, then that's quite an easy way, with the right kind of hand holding and knowledge, to really see a sales increase. And then, the same old things that everyone has done for a long time is just continue innovating and explore different ideas around product launching and yeah, just maintain the pressure.
Sounds good. What about you, Julia?
My major point would be find a community and find people who are on the same wavelengths as you are. The event that we met at over the weekend had about 800 attendees, 800 Amazon sellers. This was the biggest one in Germany so far. Most, like 90% of the people I talked to who were especially more experienced sellers, they said, we didn't come here to listen to any speech or to attend any masterclass. We came here to talk to the other sellers for networking. So my suggestion, again, as a seller myself and as a service provider, one of the best things is to be within the community of the people. Not only you get the knowledge of the other sellers, but like with the Orange Click specifically, right? You got 3 days and you can actually, for example, talk to peers, talk to me, talk to others, where normally, you know, we're invited for an event to speak in front of, I don't know, 1,000 people. Try to get, not that I don't want to talk to you, but you just won't be able to get to us, right? I also need to sleep sometimes. So when you have events that are that long and you have not a huge amount of people, but a good amount of people with different sellers and things like this, you get advantages from networking with the sellers because they also give you motivation, but by what they have done, by what they achieved, and you can be like a leech and leech upon every speaker and expert who is there and get the most out of it, right? Because usually if I do consulting, I charge a decent amount of money per hour. But if you catch me at the conference, it's for free, right? I don't drink, you don't need, right? So the point is, this is what I do. When I go to the conferences and I'm trying to learn information, and it's like a few days, I leech onto people and I will suck all of the information that I require. So one of the things, build the network, build the community, join some community, attend some events. This will propel you to, like, I've seen people who've been propelled to tens of millions of dollars in revenue per year just within a few years because they started to attend the events.
Yeah, that's so true. Totally agree with you. And I think at the European Sell Conference, we have such a unique mix of people, about 200 people from 40,
as well.
40 different countries. So it's not just like the culture mix, but it's just a mix of experiences and stories. And every time and food, of course. So yeah, definitely learn more about the European Sell Conference from the link in the video description as well. And Julia and Piers, thank you so much both for joining me today. I hope you had fun presenting these tips and sharing your knowledge with our audience and viewers. Again, if you like this video, definitely like this video by showing the thumbs up and also subscribe to our Orange Click YouTube channel. So Julia and Piers, thanks again. I hope to see you soon again.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
And now I would like to invite you to watch a video about European Seller Conference, which I recently recorded just for you, Amazon sellers, so you could learn more about how the event is actually taking place, what you can learn from it, and why the networking in that kind of conference is super valuable for you.